So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our North Dakota Exact Path overview and demonstration. My name is Toby Drake, and I'm the North Dakota Services Program Manager here at Edmentum. I'll be helping moderate today's conversation for us. And so I'll just be in the background of today's presentation, answering any questions and helping to moderate while we move on. So if we want to go, I just want to give you a couple of pointers while we're moving through the program and explain how you can participate today. So at the bottom of your screen, you can see there is, the bottom of your screen, there are a couple different ways to talk to us. We'll have about 15 to 20 minutes for Q&A this afternoon after the presentation. So we ask that you can use the Q&A button at the bottom, which is at the bottom of your screen, to submit your questions. We also have a little chat area that you can chat to me or the panelist to share any feedback, or if you have any audio issues, or if you have any questions that you just want to ask us. If you are having some problems hearing or whatever, you can check your audio settings over here at the bottom corner as well. As an additional reminder, we're recording today's presentation, so everybody on the registration list and attendees will receive a link to the recording within 24 hours. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenters. David is our education programs consultant for Edmentum, and his focus is on meeting the needs of our educators and students he serves. He's also a former math teacher, a curriculum developer, and a professional development consultant. We also have Anne on the line. So Anne, if you want to say a few words.
Yes, thank you so much, Toby. Hello, everyone. I am Anne Ellefson. I'm in the Office of Academic Support in the Department of Public Instruction, and our office has been the liaison to this work happening across North Dakota. So the governor's office and the Department of Public Instruction have purchased the Access to Exact Path program, which is English language arts and mathematics support for all kids in North Dakota through September of 2021. And this academic program is really there to supplement and support the learning that's happening, whether it be in the classroom through distance learning, or even if you're a parent who wants to figure out how can I provide additional instructional supports to my students. So we thank you so much for being here today to take time out of your day to learn more. And I'll pass the ball to David, but please know if you have questions, please feel free to reach out to me or others on the call, or us at the Department of Public Instruction. We'll gladly provide you support to provide this education opportunity for your students.
Thank you, Anne, and welcome everybody. So here is our agenda today. First, we're going to talk about our partnership with North Dakota to provide every student a personalized experience in math, reading, and language arts. Then, we're going to talk about Exact Path, first in terms of what it is, how it works, and how we know that it actually causes gains in the core subject areas. After that, we're going to take a look at Exact Path Live. We'll talk about the diagnostic, what sort of work the student does in the system, how teachers monitor and group students effectively, what data is available, and also what the student sees when they log in and get started. We're going to be leaving about 15 minutes at the end of this webinar for questions. So we, Edmentum, and the state of North Dakota agree that students at all grade levels need high quality, on grade level instruction. But that's not all. Many students have gaps to fill, and many high flyers need a way to continue to challenge themselves. And teachers need a way to provide these experiences without being bogged down by a bunch of administrative work. Exact Path does all these things, and that's why for the 2021 school year, the state of North Dakota is providing Exact Path at no cost to students, families, and school districts. At the end of the presentation, you'll be given information to sign up and get your kids Exact Path for free. So to begin to understand what Exact Path is, let's start with what it does. It makes learning personal for all students, combining an adaptive diagnostic that then places students in an online learning path where they then work on math, reading, and language arts at their level. Students can build the skills they individually need. Now, this is a quick snapshot of how it works. First, the diagnostic. We have diagnostics in math, reading, and language arts. But for schools that use NWEA or STAR assessments, we can pull in that data automatically. Step 2, that data is then used to put students in a learning path at their level. It teaches them, it remediates them when they need help, and it's aligned to North Dakota standards. Steps 3 and 4, great data means that teachers can target intervention, help students when they need it, and make data-driven decisions on how to move forward with instruction. So how do we know all this works? Well, third-party research done by Century Analytics, which we can forward to you, showed through a quasi-experimental study that ExactPath showed moderate evidence of being the cause for growth in the classroom. This means that when ExactPath is being used in the classroom, along with other instructional strategies, it is very likely that ExactPath was a cause for growth that students experienced. Basically, we know it specifically has a direct impact on growth. We're also consistently recognized in the industry for having top-notch online tools. I'm just going to call out the big one there, Cody. This is no small feat. It recognizes the best tool for learners in pre-K to 12 or higher that can be used to increase attention, responsibility, independence, and engagement in their learning tasks. This is exactly what we as parents and educators need right now for our kids. And really quickly, I'll just do single sentences to describe these third-party validations. As a WebAlign partner on the left there, you can be sure that North Dakota standards are well interpreted and well represented in ExactPath. Our Metametrics link in the middle there provides you with Lexile and Quantile measures through ExactPath. And on the right-hand side, we see our WIDA Prime V2 correlation. And that means that ExactPath provides excellent access to your English language learners. And so next, I'm going to go over a quick overview of the ExactPath solution, and then we're going to jump in and take a look live. So these are sort of the three major steps to how ExactPath works, basically. So step number 1 here, we start with some set of data. Students have to take a diagnostic. So some schools and districts use NWEA assessments or STAR assessments, and that's just fine. We can pull those data results in. However, ExactPath can come equipped with 3 adaptive diagnostics, 1 in math, 1 in reading, and 1 in language arts. It's worth noting that any parents on the line, it would be the ExactPath diagnostic the student would be taking. These assessments are normed, and I mentioned they're adaptive, which makes them very efficient. So it starts with data. The student has finished a diagnostic, and once that data is in the system will then automatically create a learning path for the student to work through. That learning path is a progression of skills, scaffolded progression of skills, and those skills are aligned to North Dakota standards. Finally, as students are doing work, teachers, parents can monitor their students' progress at a very high level and a very granular level. So if we'd like to know how students are growing in the subject of mathematics or reading and how they compare with their peers, we'd be looking at national norms and percentiles. And at a granular level, we're able to see, is my child progressing through this series of skills? What particular skill is this student struggling with, or what particular skills is this student mastering? So we start with some set of data. That data gets fed in and a learning path is created. Kids start working, and as they're working, we're able to understand their progress and their growth in a very well-rounded way. So that being said, I'm going to log into Exact Path here, and we're going to start taking a look live, okay? So I'm logged in as a teacher that has a class full of students, and I'm looking at the math learning path, the math knowledge map. If I were a parent, I would see the same view, but I would only see my children or my students in this list over here, obviously not an entire class of students. So I'm looking at this knowledge map. So let's kind of get acquainted here. On the left-hand side, I have every student that I'm responsible for. Along the top, I see every math skill in a scaffolded progression from kindergarten to 12th grade, okay? The reading and the language arts knowledge maps would look exactly like this, but with different skills. So we've got color coding here to make it real easy to see who is in need, who is mastering content, overall the academic performance of these students. So let's check out some of this color coding. Let's start with Mr. Donner right here. Mr. Donner has 4 blue squares. This means that he hasn't logged in to start any work yet. As I look at this first blue square, it's in compose and decomposing numbers. When the student logs in, he will receive instruction, and then a practice activity, and then a mastery quiz for this particular skill. Once he's done with that, he'll do the same sequence for this skill, and the same sequence for this skill, and this skill. So mastery is 80% or better, which means I have to get 80% or better in this skill to earn a trophy. So let's just say I earned a trophy for all 4 of these blue skills here. I mastered them all. What happens? Exact Path automatically gives me the next 4 skills. So I don't need a parent or a teacher to okay that. The system is just moving the student forward. But what happens then if I don't master one or more of these skills? Well, you probably see over here these red indicators, these red squares, and that's exactly what happened over here. The student took the mastery quiz for this particular skill and did not get 80% or better. So Exact Path responded. It pushed that student to a supporting skill lesson, trying to fill that gap. Now, after the student is done with that supporting skill lesson, Exact Path will put the student back up to that original skill to try again, and that all happens automatically. If the student masters this skill the second time they try it, fantastic. If the student does not master the skill the second time, does not master it the second time, we will see an X here, a red X. So it's very, very easy to look at this dashboard and see, well, if I see green, students are doing very well. They're mastering skills. If I see red, we've got some issues that might need to be dealt with. It's also extremely useful to see that X on the dashboard. When I see an X, that really tells me a lot as a parent and also as a teacher, because that X means that the child really probably does need help. They've tried it 2 times. In addition to that, they've already been remediated. So they've given some effort to fill that gap, and they're just not getting it. So in this case, we have Miss Humphreys, who is struggling with a couple skills. This skill right here, compare and order numbers, and this skill right here, addition and subtraction properties. So at this point, we know she needs help, but how do we help that student? Perhaps I'm a teacher, but I teach a higher grade and I don't have first grade materials on hand. Miss Humphreys has some pretty deep deficiencies, or maybe I'm a parent and I'm not quite sure where to start here to help my child. Well, the dashboard's going to help me out a little bit in this case. So if I just click that skill, a drawer pops up. And in this drawer are resources for that particular skill. So this is helping me help Miss Humphreys here. If I want to view the practice activities or view the lessons that the student is going through, I can do that. perhaps on my own, or perhaps I can view them again with the student. Under resources, I have additional lessons and videos and worksheets. As you can see here, these are all printables here, right? So these worksheets and answer keys are printables that I can take a look at online, or I can print them off and do them by hand as well. You'll notice here under videos, it says assign. That means I could assign this to Miss Humphreys for additional practice. So follow me here. Every single student still has their learning path. Miss Humphreys has her learning path. That's not going to change, but I can assign some additional resources to her, and that falls into the teacher assignment section. So when Miss Humphreys logs in, she has her main learning path, but she also may have a couple teacher assignments that she's expected to work on. You can track progress over the main learning path. You can track progress over the things that you've assigned as well. Under standards coverage, we can see the North Dakota standard that's being aligned here. And under progress check, I can actually go and review that assessment. So if I want to pull up that mastery quiz and go over it with the student, go over the right answers, the wrong answers, and just kind of take a look at it and use it for intervention and use it to help that student, I certainly can. So this drawer is really a gold mine. It really basically connects me directly with resources that that student needs, and are resources that I need too. So far we've been talking about a little bit about intervention here. So I log in as the instructor. I can very quickly see who's doing well, who needs help. Within one click, I can be connected with resources to help that student. But what if I'm in a situation as an interventionist or a teacher where, pardon me, I may need to help multiple students, not just one student. So what I can do in that case, let me pull this up really quick, is I can leverage the Exact Path grouping tool. This grouping tool is a real-time grouping tool. So what does real-time really mean? Well, I told you that this all started with a diagnostic, but that diagnostic test, maybe that happened a month ago, or 3 weeks ago even, or 2 weeks ago. Do I want to build groups based off of that data? Or would I rather pull from data that's current from today, from an hour ago? That's the data that I want. And this grouping tool pulls from the most current achievement data. So I would pick whatever domain I want from math, reading, or language arts. And then I would pick whatever skill I'm interested in, K-12. And have Exact Path create my groups for me. I just saved a lot of time, didn't I? No analysis, no aggregation. I can come in here and jump straight to the moment of action. Straight to the moment of action, which is helping Maria, Nora, Ben, Gloria, and the rest. So these lions are all below grade level in that skill I chose. And the tigers are about on grade level, and the bears are all above grade level. And there's so much information here. Just this view is extremely rich. These lions are going to need additional help. So if I'm planning instruction and I have this information, I can very quickly tell I'm going to need some remediation materials on hand. I should expect questions from Maria and Nora around division. Perhaps I'm teaching equations and we'll need to do some division to solve the equation. I should expect they'll need a little bit of extra help. These bears, I know that I can push them a bit. Or perhaps I know that those might be my talkers because they may already get what we're going to cover today. And if I'm an interventionist, I know who my groups are. Well, who are in my groups. So the lions perhaps have one intervention track, more intensive, one-on-one. Perhaps the tigers get an assignment in Exact Path. Right? Perhaps the bears get to work on some cool enrichment activity I haven't been able to push out for so long because I've been so busy. All in all, this grouping tool allows me to aggregate this data and group my students according to their according to sort of similar deficiencies. So at this point, what I want to do is kind of start moving towards a conversation about reporting and data. After that, we're going to take a look at what the student sees. We'll see the student views, and we'll also take a look at some instruction for younger students and also for older students too. So in terms of data, what kind of data can we get here? We're going to start with our highest view. We'll just call this the district view, because this view has every single school or every single program, let's call it, underneath it. So looking at the highest level, the first sort of data that pops out to me are these percentile rankings from averages. So I can kind of get a feel for how many students in my district are operating around grade level above or below. As I scroll down, I have all of my programs or schools broken down by grade level, which is really useful because all my kindergartners, all my kindergarten instructors are likely pursuing similar strategies and sharing strategies. So this is going to help me empower them. You know, if the Eagle Heights program is seeing decent growth and gains, and Apple Valley program is not, I know who might need to collaborate, who might need to develop and lead a PLC of some sort. So great high level data to help me understand where my gaps are, where my successes are too. Now, what's really nice about this is everything that you see in blue is clickable. So that means that those blue school names, those are actually clickable. And if I clicked one of those blue school names, I would be taken to a list of teachers at that school, like Mr. Cicero, maybe. And if I clicked on Mr. Cicero's name, I'd be taken directly to his class report. So you'll notice that I'm looking at Mr. Cicero's class results summary. Now, as a teacher, this would be a teacher's highest view, their classroom view. As a parent, your class is 1 or 2, maybe 3 students, your children, so you would have this would be your highest view. As a district administrator, you'd start on that last view we just saw. So notice at the top here, it says Diagnostic 3. But I've got a couple arrows here. So I could compare Diagnostic 3 to Diagnostic 2 and Diagnostic 1 as well, all from right on this page. Let's take a look at what's offered here for my class view. So 3 assessments have been taken. Here's the first one, average scale score of 705, average scale score of 713 for the second one, and then the third diagnostic average of 710. So this sort of high-level data for the classroom, it actually lets me reflect on what I've done over the past few months, right? So from test 1 to test 2, we've seen some average growth, and that's a positive thing. But then from test 2 to test 3, we're seeing sort of a decline here. And so it might prompt me to wonder about what's changed. What has attendance looked like? What has happened in the economy and society? What's happened to school policy? It's just helping me reflect on why we might be seeing these numbers. It's giving me some direction on where to start my investigation and reflection. As I scroll down, we get pretty granular pretty quickly here. And so what we're looking at here are student abilities by domain, okay? So maybe I see just my child in this list, James Brewer, and no other students here because I just have one child that's an exact path. Or perhaps I'm an instructor responsible for all of these students here. Let's read one row together. So James Brewer is a 3rd grader. On this last test, he's experienced negative -1 point growth. His scale score was 705 on that assessment. He's in the 42nd percentile. He is at a 3rd grade level in counting and cardinality, 1st grade level in algebra and expressions, 3rd grade numbers and operations, etc., etc. I think we kind of get it now. This is really good data. I'm going to give you just a couple examples on how you might use it. So let's say that I don't have a whole lot of time, but I definitely want to make decisions that are data driven. Well, in that case, suppose I'm doing a lesson tomorrow in algebra and expressions, and I see down that road that a lot of my students have gaps below grade level. At the very least, I know that I'll have to kind of just slow walk that lesson, have remediation materials on hand, expect questions, maybe even predict questions before class. I used to be a math teacher, and you can usually kind of have a good idea of what questions are going to be asked, and you do get some new ones along the way too sometimes. But let's say I do have some time to take a look at this data. Oftentimes in mathematics, especially, you can answer questions correctly without knowing everything precisely. You're not necessarily getting lucky. Well, I guess you might be getting a little lucky. Well, in that case, if I have a student that, as I probe, I understand that they're missing parts of different concepts, and while they might be performing well, I know that they don't really get it, or perhaps they're not performing well at all. Looking at this data, this can give me some insight into where that gap is. This can give me reason why James Brewer is not dealing with the expressions well. And I can start to do some work with that student to kind of build those bridges and kind of mend those bridges back there so we can find success on the on-grade level topics too. At this point, I told you that everything in blue is clickable, and so if I were to click one of those student names on the left, it would take me to the student's summary report here, okay? So I want you to notice, as of right now, I am in the overview section because there's a blue bar under it, okay? I could also go to mathematics, which we will. I could go to reading, language arts. So let's just look at the overview for now to see what kind of data I can get. So Jessica Labredo, all 3 assessment results on the same page. Hooray, that's really, really nice. So I see the students' current scale score in math, reading, and language arts, and their current percentile ranks. As I scroll down, I see a few sets of data. Let's look at math and reading. So what jumps out to me here is that we're able to answer this question. Is Jessica growing in mathematics? Yes, absolutely. And we were able to arrive at that determination very, very quickly in a very user-friendly way. So we see growth from test 1 to test 2, a large amount of growth. More growth from test 1 to 2 than test 2 to 3. And again, we can use this data to kind of just wonder what might have happened from test 2 to 3. Perhaps it's the academic content that the student has been going over of late, or perhaps student needs help with time management, or something has changed in that student's life. And so we kind of know where to start in those conversations with data like this. If we take a look at reading, we see that from test 1 to test 2, we saw some negative growth, let's call it. And so typically this would prompt some type of intervention, conversations, maybe some tutoring sessions and things like that. Well, what's nice about this report is that I can check myself. I can check to see if what I did worked, right? So at this moment, I could have been helping my son or daughter or my student with some of this content, and now we are seeing that, yes, our efforts have paid off and we're seeing positive growth, whether we counseled that student in academics or time management or whatever the case was, we were on the right track, okay? So let's scroll up a bit and just click on math. So these will all look the same, right? Reading, math, and language arts will all look the same. So here I'm really looking at the actual diagnostic, and notice here that I can see diagnostic 1, 2, 3, and 4 all together here on the same page. Okay, so let's scroll down. We're looking at diagnostic 3. So this is actually the diagnostic experience. I can see how those questions were answered, or at least if they were, if the student got them right or wrong, and how that affected their placement. So let's take a look at this. So the first question was answered incorrectly. So was the second and the third. The fourth question was answered correctly, and then a few more after that. So you'll notice that as time goes on, the student is going through this assessment, it's approaching a horizontal line. We want to eventually approach a horizontal line before we make a placement, because that's telling us that all questions above that or ahead of that moment would have been too difficult, and all questions before that moment or below that moment would have been too easy, right? Now, this is also interactive. So if I hover over one of these circles, I can see, okay, that question was from counting numbers. Students spent 1 minute and 15 seconds on it, did not get it right. It was a third grade question. I can also see here that this was, it says first session and second session. This just tells me that the student had to pause for some reason and pick, and come back and finish the test later. It actually happened right here. This light gray line is where that break occurred. So they stopped and they had to finish the next day, or just later, and they picked up in session 2. There were 28 items on this test. The student took a total of 48 minutes to complete it. And as we scroll down, we get some more of that domain information. And this domain information I'd like to also mention in math, reading, and language arts is actually very useful for, let's say if you're a middle school or high school teacher and you're working with students that are operating well below grade level. Knowing how they're operating in that domain is useful because you're still teaching in those domains, right? So that domain information can be very, very helpful to you, but just more of an analysis here in that domain. So one more level down, we've got a lot of data here, but it's all very logical and it all just drills right down from high level to very granular. The next step in data, and our last step probably for this webinar, will be the skill level data. Okay, so this is a skills report for a particular student. Okay, so let me help us understand why it says Learning Path 1 and Learning Path 2. So Learning Path 1 was generated when the student took the diagnostic the first time. And then a few months passed, and that diagnostic was re-administered. They took the diagnostic again. Once they're done with the second diagnostic, ExactPath gives them a refreshed learning path. Now, they don't necessarily know they're in a refreshed learning path, but we do. And we can compare their performance between these learning paths from the teacher or parent side of things. Okay. So let's look down Learning Path 1 and just understand why this report is useful. So as you can see, first of all, it's telling me by skill what's been mastered. The student mastered number patterns on this date, two-step real-world problems on this date, right? And as I scroll down, we see that same color coding that was on the dashboard. If I see red, that's not good. That means a student failed that skill 2 times. If I see orange, that's an early indicator. It's basically telling me that the student hasn't failed to master yet, but it's not looking good. They're answering questions wrong on the way. So if I can intervene early, perfect. I also want to argue here on this report that this gives me a very well-rounded view of student growth. So remember the last reporting we were looking at, we said, is Jessica growing in mathematics? The answer is yes, because her scale score was 700 and now it's 715, right? And that's good data overall in the subject area. But that graph doesn't seem all that impressive in terms of growth. I mean, it's not exponentially rising, right? So how can we understand growth at a granular level? Well, what about this? What if we said, okay, Jessica started this process 8 skills into 3rd grade. And today, Jessica is almost 20 skills into 4th grade. That's a lot of work. And that's a lot of growth, incremental progress. We should not only be encouraging and praising students for their growth in the subject area overall, but that would not have been possible were it not for this incremental growth. And so we can understand growth in a more holistic way and also communicate that growth in a much more meaningful way as well with a report like this, coupled with those other more high-level reports. So now we've got about 10 minutes left. And so 10 minutes left before questions, okay? And so what I'd like to do is talk to you a little bit about the student experience, okay? So let's start here. I'm taking a look at a demo site that's just going to kind of let me overview multiple things without having to go into each one of them. So that's why it kind of looks like a demo site, I guess. So in ExactPath, the student experience is always age appropriate, right? We've done a lot of work to make sure that every student that sits down in front of ExactPath not only is matched with content that's appropriate to their ability level, but an experience that's appropriate to their age, okay? So if I am a K through 2 student, I see this interface. 3 through 5, I will see this interface. And once I hit 6th grade, I'll see this one. Now, that doesn't mean there's 3 different websites. Everyone goes to the same place. But when I log in, I might be seeing this, depending on my age. Very colorful and animated and big buttons. If I'm older, like a 6th grader to 12th grade, I'll see something very, very classic online learner interface here. Okay, and what's nice about this, especially in a district, is if Stephanie Reed has been an ExactPath student since she was in the 3rd grade, you'd have to convince her that she's still in ExactPath once she gets to 6th and 7th grade. It looks so different. And the content and learning experience will be different too. So vendor fatigue is really not a concern. The other thing I'll mention is the content, as I said before, is age appropriate. So Stephanie Reed, if Stephanie Reed's an 8th grader and has a 3rd grade gap to fill or lower grade level gaps to fill, it's going to be presented in a way meant for an older student. So we have built lower level content to be appropriate for older students. And the other way around too. If you've got younger students that are just high flyers in language arts and reading, we've built out higher level content with appropriate themes and context so they can continue to go through that enrichment experience in a safe and appropriate way. So really, really well thought out, really, really cool stuff. So now that we kind of have a feel for what a student sees in terms of their login when they kind of first log in, what I want to do here is I want to show you a little bit of instruction. Okay, so what does the learning experience look like when a student jumps into one of these skills? We've got time to see a younger version, and also we've got time to see an older learner version, I believe. So let's check one of these out, okay? So obviously this is for a younger learner. This is a 5th grade lesson.
Making bread for the bake sale is going to be so much fun. It is. Hey, I have an idea. Let's make a table to keep track of how much bread we can each bake. That's a great idea. Then we can figure out how long it will take to bake all the bread we need. I can bake 2 loaves of bread in 1 hour. For each additional hour, I can bake 2 more loaves of bread. Okay, so that's the rule for your table. Add 2. The rule? Yes, a rule describes how to get from one number to the next in a number pattern. So in 2 hours, I can bake 4 loaves of bread. In 3 hours, I can bake 6 loaves of bread. And in 4 hours, I can bake 8 loaves of bread. I can bake 4 loaves of bread in 1 hour. For each additional hour, I can bake 4 more loaves of bread. So the rule for your table is to add 4 for each hour. Right. So that means in 2 hours, I can bake 8 loaves of bread. In 3 hours, I can bake 12 loaves of bread. And in 4 hours, I can bake 16 loaves of bread. Stan, when I look at the table, I can tell that you can always bake twice as many loaves of bread as I can in the same amount of time. A table can make it easy to see the relationship between 2 different patterns, like how much bread we can bake. And a line graph is a good way to show how values change over time. Let's make one to show how much bread we can bake. The horizontal axis shows the number of hours you will bake for, and the vertical axis shows how many loaves of bread you will bake. Okay, in 1 hour I can bake 2 loaves of bread. So I go to 1 hour at the bottom, then move up 2 lines for the 2 loaves of bread, and draw a point. The point is at the ordered pair 1, 2. This matches the time and number of. On the graph, if I move to the right 1 space, that adds 1 more hour. Then I need to move up 2 spaces to show 2 more loaves of bread. There, 2 hours, 4 loaves of bread. I can keep doing the same thing to fill in the rest of the information from the table. Now let's graph mine in a different color.
So as you can see, when we say instruction, we mean it. We're actually teaching this concept. I make special note of this because sometimes in this industry, when people say instruction, they really mean practice. And so we're not going to identify a student has a gap and then just give them some questions to answer. We're going to teach them. We're going to reteach them this content. And then after this, the student would work on a practice activity. And then after that practice activity, as I explained before, the student would then do a mastery quiz. Okay, so what I'm doing now is logging in as an older student now who would then have the sort of older presentation of the content, just so that you can see that it in fact does change and just how different it is. Really quickly, let's just take a look.
Graphs of nonlinear relationships. In this lesson, you will use appropriate units and quantities to interpret and create graphs of nonlinear relationships. Warm-up. Sam walked to a nearby shop to purchase a gallon of ice cream. The shop is 400 meters from his house.
So again, this presentation of the content is appropriate for our students in grades 6 through 12. However, there are some instances where schools, teachers, parents might say, you know what, I think that my 7th grader would be engaged with the sort of younger presentation. And if that's the case, you can certainly, there's just a checkbox to tell ExactPath, hey, it's okay for you to assign the younger presentation of the content to this student. So you can certainly leverage everything ExactPath has to offer for your students. So in this case, I've got some automatic audio, right? It was reading to me before I hit pause, of course. And then I'm working on a dynamic tool that I have to use before I can move forward. I have a sample answer down below. We'll just see one more slide here. And here is a quick video. It's only 1 minute and 30 seconds long. We will not watch the whole thing, but I'm just going to jump through it so you can kind of just get a feel for how we use video in the higher levels.
Erica is an app developer who is tracking the number of downloads of a new app she just launched. She is looking at 2 different graphs that show the number of times her app has been downloaded since her 2 test downloads. The day she launched the app, the number of downloads doubled every minute. Graph 1 shows the number of downloads over the course of the first 4 minutes, while graph 2 shows the number of downloads over the course of the first 10 minutes. In this lesson, you'll learn to use appropriate units and intervals to interpret and create graphs of nonlinear relationships.
Although we didn't do a curriculum review here, you can clearly see it's more age appropriate for an older learner. And then my last point before questions will be just taking a look at this toolbar here over on the left-hand side. So I've got a highlighter tool so I can highlight words that are important to me, or maybe I need that contrast. So that's available to me. I've got a calculator tool for work I'll need to do, a translator tool that translates to 19 different languages. This is one of those tools that helps out in that V to prime V2 correlation to make this content accessible to English language learners. A built-in dictionary as well. I can look up any word I want. So in the end, I hope I've been able to help you all visualize, whether you're an administrator, a teacher, or a parent, how ExactPath can help you help the student that you're trying to serve in an easy to use, friendly way. So if we've got questions, we can certainly take those now. And
Great, thanks so much, David.
yeah.
One of the questions we had was, you mentioned their ExactPath has shown moderate results when used in the classroom. Is there research on using it outside of the classroom or outside of school?
Yeah, so not that I'm aware of. However, what I would say is that research, I think the base is really in the student grade levels that it's being used with students. So some of that research actually separates out the other instructional strategies that are being used, meaning we take into account the type of growth that we're seeing with the other instructional strategies and the type of growth we're seeing with ExactPath specifically. So I might have said it in a way that made it seem like you had to have those additional instructional strategies and combine them with ExactPath. That I don't think is necessarily true. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Well, so Lodi, I'm typing right now. There is in the Edmentum website, there's a page for just research. So I'm sending that link as well to you. And if you want to explore that, there's a lot of different research options. If you want to read any of those studies, you're more than welcome. And that might help answer some questions too. Another question we had was, how long should a student be spending on ExactPath each week?
Great question. So the recommended time is 30 minutes to 70 minutes per week per subject. So if we're just talking about math, we would want a student working in their learning path, 30 minutes to 70 minutes per week in mathematics. If they also had reading, we'd want another 30 to 70 minutes in reading. So anything within that interval of time for that subject area, our research shows statistically significant growth for the student.
Those are the only two questions I've seen so far. Does anybody have any else right now? Otherwise, I can add a few more things. If you think of something, you can add them in the chat while we're talking. If you have not signed up yet for ExactPath, we do have a website that you can fill out a form, which I'm going to put into the chat right now to everyone. So if you haven't signed up yet, you can fill out the form on the side of the page and hit get started. And this triggers our entire process to get going to set up your ExactPath account. Whether you are a parent or whether you're a district or teacher, you'll fill it out and you can see, you'll put, even if you're just a parent, not just, but even if you are a parent, you'll put homeschool. Even if your child is enrolled with a district, that's okay. We'll know that you're going to use it at your home. So you'll fill that out. Once you're set up, you'll get a welcome letter, and I'll tell you how to get started, and it'll also provide all the resources you need to get going. We also have this wonderful get started page, which I'm also putting into the chat. And the getting started page, you can see the screen on, which David's showing on his slide, has a ton of resources. We offer frequently asked question PDF. We have on-demand recordings. Other than this, we have this recording on there, but we also have others like just how to get started or how to understand the assessments, all sorts of different videos as well. And there's lots of great resources on the getting started page as well. We also, if you are interested in getting a personalized professional learning next week, we have those available as well. You can just reach out to me. You have my email address from the registration, or you can connect to us through the website too. In January, we will start the professional development sessions again on a regular basis once we get started in the second semester again. Just saw a couple questions come in. Yep, we're gonna, as Ann said, we're gonna send a recording to everyone that was registered, so you'll get this recording. They're also available through the Getting Started page. There's a Watch Now button for families and then a Watch Now for educators, so you can pick which one works best for you. And then, is there a particular pitch you use for parents who are doing distant learning for their children?
I'll try to address that, Toby. So
yeah,
I think the question that DL put in the chat on what about families that are doing distance learning for their kids? I think it depends. There are families that are doing distance learning 100% on their own, and they're home educating their kids. I think that strategy is a little different than, like, let's say that you're with a school or a district, and you're a school or district listening right now, and you want to provide an additional support to your kids that are currently distance learning at home. You can sign them up for ExactPath as an additional resource and then share that connection and how to log in with those parents and families. Or even like the Ellefson kids, my public district doesn't necessarily participate with this right now. I can sign up my own children, even though they're enrolled in public school and they go to school multiple days a week. I can provide extra reading and mathematics and writing support through ExactPath. So there's different ways that we can structure that. Now, is there a particular pitch? No, not necessarily, Dale. But are there different scenarios that we want to be able to provide this access to all kids in North Dakota? So no matter what type of current schooling situation a child is in, we want to be able to provide them with extra support in reading, mathematics, and writing. So if you still need more clarity, just drop it in the chat or in the Q&A.
Great, thanks so much, Ann. That's great. Let me see. Oh,
there's another question in the Q&A that says that they filled out the setup page and they've not received anything. How long does it usually take?
It usually takes within about 48 hours. If you have not heard anything yet, I'll send my email address and reach out to me and just let me know, and I will follow up and see if it's only been like you just did it, and it's not going to be right away. But if it's been longer than a day, let me know and we'll follow up and find out where that is. We're almost out of time. Is there any other questions or anything else anyone else wants to bring up?
I just want to say I appreciate it's 4:30 on a Thursday afternoon. We know that you've all had very busy days, so thank you so much for being here to learn more. We really want to be able to support you in this process. If you're looking to roll it out for your students or for your kids in your own house, however that might work, please reach out to us. You could reach out to Toby directly. You can reach out to me and Ellison. I just want to really just shout out to you for all that you're doing for North Dakota kids, whether they're the ones that live under your roof or that attend the roofs under your schools. Like, we really appreciate you and everything that you're doing right now. So thanks so much, and don't be a stranger.
Yeah.
Let us help you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ann, and thank you all for attending. We really appreciate it. And like, I just want to reiterate what Ann said. Please feel free to reach out to us. We would love to help you and get you set up and answer any questions you might have. So I'll stay on for a couple more minutes if anyone wants to just talk and ask independently. But otherwise, have a great weekend and a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.